Hello and good night. Thank you for joining us once again. Another beautiful Monday afternoon, Monday evening. And we are live on For the Hour. Another Monday means it's another installment of our featured program. Thank you for joining us, Tobago and the wider public, and happy holidays to you. Today we are speaking about men and the wider role they play in society. Right? And so we have had a uprise in a bunch of issues that are related to men in today's society. And we are kind of basing our brains trying to figure out what is the solution? Where do we start? All right? And also over the weekend, we would have celebrated International Men's Day on the 19th of November. And the International Men's Day is a day where we celebrate the cultural, socio-economical, political achievements of men across the world, all right? And we are also in November, which is usually a month that we take to observe men's issues, men's health issues, men's mental health and physical health issues. So it's only fitting that we also have the conversation about men and the wider role we play in society tonight. For this episode of For the Hour, all right? And tonight on our panel, we have an esteemed panel tonight with esteemed gentlemen who are mentors, they are fathers, they are brothers, they are husbands, and outstanding men of society. And they are also men who are involved in the championing of men's causes in society today, right? So, without further ado, I'm going to introduce the panel. First, we have Dr. Kern Johnson, who is the Vice President of B-Men TT, sorry. We have Ted Jones, who is a businessman and also a member of B-Men Association, also a member of Fathers Association of Trinidad and Tobago. We have joining us virtually tonight, we have Mr. Rondell Fields, President of the Fathers Association of Trinidad and Tobago. And also we have joining us virtually is Mr. Michael A.T. Stewart. Needs no introduction, right? Also a member of B-Men TT, and he's the Caribbean Coordinator of International Men's Day. Good night, gentlemen. It's great to have you on the program tonight, and looking forward to the conversation. First, before we move on to that, let me just frame up some things before we move on, right? Because I don't want the conversation to get derailed early, right? First things first, when we speak about men, right? We speak about men in the general sense. We are not talking about all men, right? We are speaking about a vast number of men. It's a general statement, all right? So we had a lot of people jumping. Well, I don't do that, and that's not me. Okay, we're speaking about men in a general sense. If we mention women, it's women in a general sense, all right? Also, when we speak about men, we define in men, adult male, right? If it is that you are unsure that you are a man, speak to your mental health practitioner, all right? That is very important. And also, I want to send out a message to all men as well. If it is that you are feeling depressed, thoughts of suicide, reach out to the mental health practitioners. There is the mental health clinic in Bacalet. They are open every work day. You don't need to make an appointment. Seek help. Speak out to someone close to you. Get help, all right? Because over the weekend, I'm not sure if most people would have known internationally, someone who would have been kind of a childhood hero of many children committed suicide. His name escapes me at the moment, but I know him as the Green Ranger from Power Rangers, right? Oh, okay. And so he committed suicide over the weekend. He was going through some marital problems and such like that, and he still had a lot to offer to the world, right? And he committed suicide. So men, speak out. Get help. If it is that you are finding yourself in a vulnerable place, speak out to someone close to you. Get that help that you need. But back to the conversation. Men, good night. The panel is here. Good night. Thank you for joining us. And so, moving into the conversation tonight, we want to start off with the role that men play in society. And we know that many different people that you might ask might have different they might have different opinions of the role men should be playing in society today, right? So I want to go around the panel and ask, what do you think is the role of all men in today's society? Right? I'm going to spin it up a little bit. We're going to start with the virtual ones and then we'll come in studio, right? So Mr. Ronell Fields, we're going to start with you. What do you think the role of all men is in today's society?
I think I know what it's supposed to be. If I am to tell you what it really is right now, I don't know if I might start the show on a bad footing. But I think it's supposed to be, we're supposed to be exemplars. We're supposed to be mentors. We are also supposed to be receptive. We're supposed to be able to receive advice, receive love. I mean, being man is just supposed to be able to being able to be human too. You understand? Being able to love, being able to feel loved, being able to show emotion while still maintaining a level of strength as well. And I think now the discussion has become so congested about what a man is, what a real man is, and it's become so confusing, I think, to even boys, even to me as a man as well. So I think we sometimes forget being man more so than anything else has a very big human element. It is susceptible to making mistakes. It's susceptible to falling short, but you always have the opportunity to do better. You always have the opportunity to educate yourself daily. All these things, and as I said, this is generally what I believe the role of the man should be. But I really believe at this point in time that the role of the man is grossly challenged, and he's being placed in our box as what it should be, what it should look like, what he should say, what he should not say, and it's becoming, I would say, for us as men, challenging, and I could only believe it's very confusing for young boys trying to figure out what it is to be a man. I'll start on that note.
Hence the reason why I frame it first, I frame it up. A man is an adult male. That's the general sense of what it's supposed to be. If you want to go on into what is a responsible man or what is a safe man, then we could go into frame up what those definitions are. But the definition of a man, adult male. But
correct.
Mr. Stewart, we on my program now. Oh, how the tables have turned, Mr. Stewart. Oh, yes. Also, Mr. Stewart, same question to you. What do you think is the role of all men in today's society? Mr. Stewart, we're not hearing your mic. Audio.
Are you hearing me now?
Yes, loud and clear.
Right. I think a man is multifaceted. So if we take it from him as a father, then he's source to his family. He makes sure he provides. If we take him as a husband, he is a companion and a protection of his wife and family. If we take him as a social person, a man in the community, he's a mentor. So he has so many different roles to play that as a man, he has to be able to know how to be able to manage each role when each role is required. And I think that we have quite a number of men who have been doing that, albeit that we have been ignoring those men, giving focus on those who have not been doing too well, and now banding all with the same brush, where you're throwing out the, how would they put it? You throw out the water,
The bath water.
something with the bath water. Yes. But that is my condensed method of describing what the role of a man is.
So much, Mr. Stewart. So we're going to come in studio now. Right? We're going to come in studio. And we have with us Mr. Ted. Right? Also, very big mentor in the Tobago space when it comes to men. What do you think are the roles of all men in today's society?
When you know when you have to talk after a man like Michael, that answer up all the things, yeah. You know? But actually, you know, one of the things though is all of what those two gentlemen said, and I would also want to bring it to the perspective that he's a bringer of stability. He is the securer of peace in any society, in any community. He's also, I think, the bringer of seed. And I'm not only talking about seed in terms of children, but I'm talking about seed sometimes in terms of, again, stability, in terms of righteousness, in terms of right thinking, right? The man is also, in many cases, his role is that to protect that which is good for the society, and the society means now again his family, his wife, his loved ones, his society, his church, his community, his office, right? The role of man fundamentally also is to train other people to be like him, so that we have now a continuation, right, of that legacy, as it were, of security and that kind of thing, right? So that's, I think, it's to add. I left very little for Dr. Kern to say.
Well, that's why I leave the doctor last, because he would come with the most philosophical things, right? So, Dr. Kern, same question to you. What do you think the role of men are into the society?
Well, I think the major thing that really wasn't touched on is from a spiritual perspective. As Michael said, you know, the role of a man would vary depending on the different facets that you're talking about. And I think from a spiritual perspective, man's role is to be an example.
Yes.
An example of many things. One of those things is our example or a reflection of God's character to those he encounters. That could be his wife, his children, his family, his church, his community. To everybody that he interacts with, he's supposed to be that reflection. Of course, once he is maintaining a true definition of that reflection, then yeah. So that's what I think a man should be. Yeah.
Right. So we have more or less the gentlemen kind of agreeing and adding on what each other are saying, and the roles that we have to play is very important to the backbone of our function in society.
Correct. Right?
And when I'm listening to the society at large, I hear a lot of noise. The bad stuff that men perpetrate on society are amplified, and not enough of the good stuff that men do in society are amplified. Because you would see, they would ask the question, are there any good men left? But I could tell you we find 5. Right? We find 5 today on the panel. We have 5 good men here. I could speak for myself. Right? But I'm sure if you ask any other of the gentlemen here on the panel, these are good men, exemplary men who are taking up the mantle and doing what they need to do in society. Alright? And so I want to pose this question to anybody on the panel. Do you think it's mostly noise, or men taking up the responsibilities of what they're supposed to be doing? Or most men are taking up the responsibility of what's supposed to be doing? Or is there some credence to the noise? Anybody can answer the question.
Well, let me go, because I know when my brother, I see my brother wants Randall wants to pull something out of the hat there. But listen, because of the importance of the role of men, any role that is absolutely important is going to be scrutinized. It's always going to be, there'll always be a certain amount of critique to it. There'll always be a certain amount of alternate suggestions to it. It's usually what happens when you have a very important role. If you don't understand, the role of the chief secretary is one that's always going to be criticized. The role of presidents and prime ministers would always be criticized. Simply because that role, so many lives are hinged on it. So naturally, there is going to always be that. The other aspect of it, because a man's role fundamentally is foundational, it's not a very glamorous role. And as a result of that, you find that men who are busy doing their roles tend to not have the opportunity to broadcast. So you find that naysayers would have the time. You understand? Naysayers would have the time, exactly, to put things there, but There are men that are holding society together. There are men that are holding their family together. And when you're holding your family together, trust me, it is such a difficult thing. Men are going through such a difficult time that just for good men to be there, they have to hold their own. And a lot of that means that they just don't have time for a lot of the rhetoric and that kind of thing and the firing back. Maybe we should, but we just don't have that time, I think.
And that's a question I ask myself all the time. Is it pivotal to fight those battles? Well, let me move on. Who else wants to add in?
I think there might be some merit to the statement because of the fact that we have one of the things that one of the ways that men learn is by what they see. And we have a lot of homes now with single parents, particularly without the male figure being present.
Correct.
And so they don't have that example. As I said in the earlies, a man's role is to be an example or to show to the family. And so if they grow up around a woman, sometimes it's difficult, or I would say almost impossible, for a woman to show a boy how to be a man. And so if that continues, then the men grow up with feminine definition of what males are. And a lot of times those definitions are quite biased and skewed. And it perpetuates a set of negative seeds.
It's almost like self-hate.
Right. And so when I wanted to touch on something that you said, Tim, in terms of the weight of the responsibilities that we play in society. It's so heavy, right? Often we don't have the time to shine the light on it, right? And such the outspoken dissenters would have the space now to kind of criticize, and we don't have because even providing a loan for a family is a lot, right? It's a lot. Any man here would tell you, and the panel would tell you, you don't have time to go on Facebook and fight up with the naysayers, right? But anybody else on the panel virtually wanted to add in? Do you think any good men are left? What do you think? Is there merit to the dissenters?
In my experience, and I always say I've talked to so many men, I have seen and continue to see so many good men. And I held a similar belief. And I always remember, that was one of the biggest mistakes I had made in my earlier years. I always thought I was the only good father, and anybody that wasn't or involved in their children's life it was all their choice, and there was nothing systemically or nothing externally that could have kept you from being the best child or the best father, or the best man. But being involved in this type of advocacy for the last decade of my life, it's opened my eyes to so many unfortunate things, so many things where men, I just want to be real, fellas. I want to be real. It comes across to me as though there is a structured, I don't even want to call it a plot, but there is some type of structure that is fighting against the role or the place or the position that men are supposed to be in, whether it's in the family, whether it's in the workspace, whether it's just generally a member of society. And the thing is, if people could realize, you must realize from a demeanor these days, you must realize the way that are speaking on the topic of male issues these days. It's as if they've been bumping our heads against the wall. I mean, it's good for us to come and speak about what men are, and we think men are really not good in this perspective or that perspective. But the thing is, behind the scenes, I've seen so much when it comes to policies where we as a society asking men, as I always say, to step up as fathers, and we're excluding them of every segment of fatherhood. Births in the public healthcare system, 3 days for the year for paternity leave, all these things. And then we're saying step up as a father, 4 every other weekend, 4 days a month for access to your children. So it's troubling to me now that I see these things, and sometimes being in these spaces where these policies are made, you always have to be combating or trying to justify a man receiving a human right, a man receiving public assistance for his children, a man, or look at the point I've been making for the entire week. The Ministry of Planning is doing consensus and research, something like research on men, on families, women and children, and they're leaving out the man. They did it 4 years ago. We raised an issue about it, showing them that if you're going into the home, do the research on men too. We're seeing men, the men are the lead persons committing suicide. Men are the most displaced. Men are the most murdered. Men are the most murderers. And to me, fellas, it comes a time where we have to realize, I don't know if other persons not in the same spaces as well, but I'm in those spaces and I'm seeing, I remember asking for statistics on male issues like this. And the head of IGDS said, Mr. Fields, if you want to use a businessman, pay and we will do it. You fund it, because the funding we have is not for that. I remember when I started Single Fathers Association, I went to the IGDS then 12 years ago. They said the funding they have is for women and children since then. So it would be hypocritical of me to come here and not be real with the public with what I face behind the doors. And it is at a time now that men have to say, we as men have to be strong and stand up and really make sure that the interest not only of ourselves as men, but our sons coming up is really sought as well. So yes, I understand the perspective that all right, not all men are good. That is what some people want to say, but I think it's a human thing.
Right. Mr. Stewart, you want to weigh
Not
in?
all people. All people.
Yes, thank you very much. I support what Mr. Rondelfield is saying, and you could hear his frustration over the last couple of videos that he's doing, that after having done so much, it seems as though he's knocking against a door that is not only closed, it's locked, shut, and barricaded. It seems as though the powers that be not listening to what is being said regarding men, that is, the stats are against men in a society such as this that we have. For example, I've gone to the doctor with my wife, gynecologist. They'll have one chair. They didn't plan for a man to come inside with his wife. In our health system, you don't have the luxury in many of the health systems to witness the birth of your child, because it is not considered that you're going to be part of it. Many of the funding of research, as Mr. Field has just indicated, would fund things for women and girls. So a lot of corporate organizations will come on board to get that funding and now promote breast cancer and a number of things that they are doing in collaboration with these mega funders. So with the men, we are left on the outside because you don't have those recognition from the United Nations and UNICEF and all of those people. You have UN Women, etc. All of that would be backing situations of women and would provide funding. So when you want to do something for men, you actually have to go and source it yourself. And something that I always raise is the United Nations that would have 100 and something days, I think it is, recognized world days. And you'll have world days for migrating bees. You'll have world days for a number of things. And you have about 8 of them, if I remember correctly, dedicated to women and girls, rural women. But when it comes to International Men's Day, which is November 19th, that is labeled on the United Nations calendar, you could Google it, as the World Day of the Toilet. So
Correct.
you're asking yourself, is there not a conspiracy against men when it comes to this? You don't have the kind of backing that that one would think. Now, there's a recent, to show how bad it is, there's a recent video, and probably we should have played it tonight. There's a woman who purports to be a lesbian, but she's also into research and documentaries, etc. And she dressed up herself as a man to see what a man's life is like. Now, many of the communities she went to, they were unaware that she's a woman. They thinking that she's a man. When she went to the male communities, learning to play bowling and so on, she was welcomed, and even though she did not know how to do it, those who knew were willing to be able to take time to show her, thinking it's a man. And she said everywhere she went, there was this camaraderie, manhood that took place. But she said when she went into women's community, the way she was treated and the kind of kickback that she got from the women's community, it was reprehensible. So much so that that lady who dressed and operated as a man became so depressed, she committed suicide. She could not live the life of a man when she saw what men went through, and she felt it herself, and the kind of dispossession and the kind of hostility that she got from women. That tells you all.
You know, as you mentioned that, I got some stats for you guys and for the listeners that I think will blow some minds.
You do homework, man.
I did some homework.
Bring it.
Because one of the things that attacks us is sometimes we don't necessarily have the figures, right? So the Guardian in 2000, and I'm just giving you the year, 2017 or 2018, published, and I wrote it down, but it's just that my phone battery died. Published a survey done by the University of the West Indies Department of Education, and some startling results came out, and this was between the years 2005 to 2010. What they found is that in the school system, girls outperformed boys to a ratio of 65 to 35. 65 to 35. Trinidad and Tobago, among all the other territories surveyed, Trinidad and Tobago emerged number 3. That means there were 2 other territories that had worse statistics for boys, right, throughout. But here's the other thing. This was published in 2015. It was on The Guardian somewhere around 2017, 2018. No, I'm sure nobody ever heard about that report. Right? Nobody has heard about that report. You have empirical evidence that boys in your school system in Trinidad and Tobago are doing so badly compared to the girls. You also have the statistics to show that we are also doing third worst to everybody else as boys. No wonder we have the crime situation we have.
Ted, and I'll tell you this. I bring this up every single year for SE.
But
every single year
for SE. But listen to this. Listen to what is worse. So just around that time, the New York Times had a report. And the New York Times has the same situation where girls are underperforming boys. But here's what their resolve is in the United States. And that is why things are going to be so bad for us as men. Their resolve is that if girls are doing so much better than boys at the primary and college level, why are boys managing all the top jobs in America? That is their problem. I want to understand. No idea, no desire to solve the problem.
Because
there was a time they found worms in Trinidad that were dying strangely, right? Or birds or something were dying strangely. They sent scientists to find out what was going on. Could you imagine if those statistics were reversed and we had 65% of boys doing well versus 35% of girls? That would turn up the whole of education.
And what I say every year, Ted, is that we examine and we see the results coming out. Boys are underperforming, girls are. And we say, all right, at this level, the excuse is always, well, girls is mature faster than boys. So we end up saying, all right, at this point, the girls taking the schoolwork more seriously. But when you look at it across the whole education system, there are performing boys in primary, in secondary at CXC level, and they have higher rates of graduates in the university level.
Even in the engineering department.
Exactly. So we trying to figure out now, instead of trying to say, well, boys are more mature or less faster than girls and they get more serious later in life or whatever. Can we now put some resources behind as to why it is that's the case? We never investigate it, we just sit down and accept that as an excuse.
It's not going to happen.
But I want to tell that story. Oh, go ahead, Mr. Fiz. You had something to add.
Yeah. And you see, that is the power of statistic. Statistic does prove points, and that is why I keep wondering, is this the reason for hesitancy for statistic pertaining to the issues that men suffer from? Let me give you some more statistic. In 2019, 2020, 2021, 325 persons in Trinidad and Tobago committed suicide. 259 out of those 325 were men, giving it a 80% percentile of men killing themselves. What has taken place since then? Nothing. You have empirical evidence that men are killing themselves in astronomical numbers, quadruple the amount that of the female numbers. Men are killing themselves. No strategic, male focal, no strategy to address this issue. One killed himself yesterday. One killed himself the week before. A soldier that killed himself the week before that. So it wonders and astonishes me why we are not using another statistic again. We had to get the statistic from the family court ourselves. Do you know a man is 3 times less likely to get custody of his child, even though he and the mother may be on the same exact footing just because of his gender? Go to our website, see the issue paper there. So a lot of this research and statistic reveals the hidden truth. And people are upset with that apparently.
Right. Good. What do you think about that statistic, those statistics you just brought up there?
Life eats men up. That is just the raw facts. When you look at the birth rates of men to women, but you look at the death rates, you look at the amount of men that are available for relationships as opposed to the amount of men who are incarcerated, the amount of men who are on the streets, the amount of men who may have some sort of mental disorder and they are incapable of being in a relationship or whatever. When you look at the burdens that a man has to bear as a provider and a protector, when you look at the level of disproportion against men in society, the fact that we are even talking about this right now, I am sure some person, some woman may be saying that all you're bias or all you're against woman or some kind of something.
Just bring up woman.
Yeah, we don't do anything.
Eh?
So from the time a man does stand up, he gets a backlash. Society, life eats men up. So I totally agree with those stats.
And what I wanted to bring up to agree with you on the point there, and a comedian bring it up, but I find it very, very pertinent in terms of the value that men have. Men have no inherent value. The value that men get is earned in society. Women and children have it inherently.
They're born with it, yeah, correct.
Exactly. And so, when it is that men who don't understand that and don't see their worth in this society, you will be prone to be doing these kind of things and committing suicide because you're not feeling valued. You understand?
But it could go a little bit beyond just that. Remember, the numbers are overwhelming. The numbers are actually overwhelming, and you have to understand that, as I said, the lady who pretended to be a man for a period of time committed suicide.
Yes.
That is to tell you what men in general live with. Now, what happens is that there's a rage against men who are what you call the alpha male or the A-class male. Those are the ones that everybody sees. And what they tend to do is they tend to tag all men on the bravado, not recognizing that all men themselves have to deal with the alpha male also. You understand? So there's not to say, right?
Yeah,
So,
we deal with it too.
you understand?
It's true.
So the thing is that when they make those generalizations that are supported by press, that are supported, the stories that we tell are not necessarily good stories. There is a passion to promote men who have a more effeminate nature, simply because that helps with some kind of psychological feeling. They think it helps. It is so necessary. I remember they you know, when you talk to women, they say they like an emotional man, a man who cries and all of that. And I'm saying, Palos,
They think they want that.
the thing is that men, all men are emotional. But I would tell my brothers out there, the first thing, if you all listen to anything right now, if you have to cry, cry before God.
Yeah.
Right? There is no need to cry in front of anybody else because they can't help you. Right? So this need for people to see men cry and men to be this way and that kind of thing, to me, are all structures to try to break down masculinity and bring in that level of compromise, you know, that men have to deal with.
Because masculinity is not what femininity looks like. It doesn't resemble it in any form or fashion.
Exactly.
Right? So what I want to go into, because, and it would seem like I'm glossing over a lot of things, but we need to touch on a lot of things because of time. Right?
Yes, indeed.
I want to frame up a story real quick. There was a time I went down to Trinidad, right? And this would kind of tie into the last topic we had about education, boys in the education system. Went down to Trinidad, Lavantil, Beetham, Lavantil, Sea Lot area, they were protesting, right? About probably some murder of some, the police brutality, they killed somebody and they found it was unjust, right? And they were blocking the roads with tires, blocking the roads with all appliances and burning it up in the streets. I going on the bus route, and who I seen but a bunch of 12-year-old, 13-year-old boys with, none of them have one shirts on their back, dragging tires in the road to burn it, to block the road. We're not seeing nobody there over the age of 15 years old. And I'm seeing down there, I almost bring a tear to my eye. Why aren't these boys in school? Because it was during that time, school time. Why are these boys in school? Why are they on the road? And we're talking about now the crime rate in Tobago going up, and what the government could do about it. And I know there's a big political discussion about it. How about we start there? The gangsters and them is the best mentors we have in this country, apparently. You understand? What can we do to get these boys off of the life of crime so that we don't end up down the road continue singing the same song? We will bring in Mr. Stewart here.
All right. Are you hearing me?
We can hear you, but we can't see you anymore. Okay, we're seeing you now.
All right. So you know, there are some studies that came out that showed that, let me make sure I position this thing properly. There are some studies that came out that showed that parenting is one of the greatest contributor to delinquency in children or good, moral, upright bringing up of children. They say when you do the training for the children to try to get them back on the right track, it can do so much, but they are going back home to a dysfunctional family where the parents are not parenting properly. The statistics and the research that have been said, and if those people want me to quote the people who have written those articles, there's an article written in 2016, another one I think was written in 2018, that talked about when you deal with it from the parental standpoint, getting the parenting right, the academic success of the children and the boys, the social integration of the children, the behavior and ability to hold restraint of the emotions work far better when they come out of a stable home with parents who are doing their work. When that does not take place, it has shown that in the Caribbean in particular, there is a low engagement of parents to children. That low engagement of parents in the lives of children, they feel, have resulted in the kind of delinquency, juvenile delinquency and otherwise, and some of the issues that we are now grappling with. If therefore that the research has shown this, then I think it's a simple matter of pumping resources to be able to help people before they become parents, helping them to understand what parenting is all about, and those who have become parents, helping them to be able to learn that these are the things. Because I'm a parent, and I think most of the people in the audience here, in the studio there, are also parents. We did not get the training, and we recognize that we made some mistakes probably with the first child or second child, but over time we get to learn it. But what happens to that first child who got the trial and error? That's why we need to be able to pump resources into helping parenting skills, and that's why in my own business that I try to, as much as possible, run programs on parenting. I've been a parent probably for 36 years now, and some of you all have your own experiences as a parent that could now become mentors in the lives of some of these parents themselves.
Right. And what I want to add to that is, by the time the government have to figure out what to do and put preventative measures about crime, it's too late.
Yeah.
It's way too late. There's so many institutions that have to come in there before, right? So you're going to take Mr. Fields. What do you think you can do with our young men and boys in order to kind of reduce the effect later down on crime?
Yeah, I do want to agree with what Michael is saying there for sure, because it's all about the environment that is created, the environment that you create, whether it be in a home, whether it be in the school, because some people, as you rightfully said, may get bad parenting at home. They might go in school and a teacher might help you, might mentor you, might be able to pull you out of the gutter. Sometimes I would echo his sentiments as well, because I've seen it happen with my lot when some of the instructors say they come out, get them out of those environments, reform them a bit, but when they return to the environment after the first 6 months, everything back out the door again and they're back to where they came from. So I think it's about consistent empowerment and creating good environments as much as possible within certain communities. Some communities, to be honest with you, it's so saturated with the negative, you have to remove the child out of that community in some instance, getting them involved or encouraging cadets and scouts and these kind of things that we had when we were younger, pathfinders. These things were things where you could have found positive role modeling. And I think that is it's easy for sometimes, I always say for some of us on the outside here to say that, because I can imagine a child. I've seen children living in the ghetto, so to speak. They have a different culture. They understand that when the police pass and make a song for the drugs man who does give them $20 to know that is the man who love you. So rewiring that culture is not something easy, and sometimes you need to remove them out of the environment, or as Michael is saying, start strengthening within the family circle before they even become family, strengthening the young boys and girls going to coming into relationships to be stronger parents when they become parents, and possibly by couple you'll start to change the environment itself. But I think it's all environmental. I know sometimes we attribute race to it too, but I have seen you put any race in our environment. Look at, there's a little white boy in a certain area in Trinidad, and he does act bad like everybody else, if you understand what I mean. So it comes heavily with environment and the impact the environment is going to have on the child.
Dr. Kern, I know you would have been in the NGO that you all are part of. You all have been doing some work. So she could share a little bit of what it is that you all were trying, or what could be done to help alleviate getting those boys out of those environments, as Mr. Rondell Fields had said, or at least mentoring them in a proper direction.
Right. So remember, we said earlier that it starts from the home, right? It's a multifaceted approach, and we need to tackle every facet where it started. Sometimes it's difficult to take the child out of the home or the environment, and so we need to tackle any other avenue that we may have to access that child. So what we have been doing at BMen is collectively as a group, or sometimes individually, we go out there and we speak to different groups, different organizations, and we talk to them on different topics, particularly topics where they may be lacking in, where they may be deficient in. We also work along with other groups, the Youth Council, the churches. Yesterday there was a walk with I Walk with Pastor, 300 Mighty Men of Valor, and Brother Fields came up to support that as well. And so what we do is we go out there to sort of try to replace what wasn't in the home.
Right.
You know, we may not do the best because we don't have all the resources, we don't have the time with the children to do that. But as much as possible, if we can be a positive example to every male that we meet, we will go a long way in helping to alleviate that.
Right.
Yeah.
And what I wanted to say is we as men, we are very logical creatures, yes?
That's
Could
right.
I agree?
Correct.
Right? And so when we're looking at the problems, we're looking at the statistics, we're looking at the data, we're looking at the root causes. If there are so many men in society, right, that could notice that, because everybody on this panel at least could notice it, right? What can we then do? Because we need resources. You understand? It seems like the administrations of today prefer to pump more money into police and policing and security than doing the programs that's necessary at the ground level to cut off the grassroots of crime. What can we then do? What else do we need to do to get them to listen? And I'm saying us, because I also am a champion for the cause.
I think that's a very good question. But one of the things that I would maybe say is this, that we have to keep pumping, because we are logical creatures. But notwithstanding that we are logical creatures, if we don't have the information, then it's hard for us to make any definitive action. And part of the problem we have in our society is the lack of information, right? Because even if information is there, Randall Fields would tell you, Michael Stewart would tell you how much of the information is for some reason not published.
It's suppressed.
It's suppressed. What you have is something called, there's a condition in our country called, or in our society in the West called, over victimhood. So even if you see men being a victim here, because they are part of what you call that tyrannical, patriarchal structure that is now accursed.
That they like
exactly. That is across the world. Then you can now say that, well, this is what you'll find these men is, but what about the women who have to this and that and that and that? And then remember that there's a concept that old people say that the squeaky wheel gets the worm. The oil, right? But which man is squeaky? You know the men who squeaky because they're getting dealt with, right? There are men who squeaky, you know, right? And they're getting dealt with. Everything they want in society they get. And you can't even speak about squeakiness because this show and all might get censored. So the point that I'm making is that because of that, that is the kind of society we live in. So we now have to continue speaking this. We have to do it with wisdom because we are also very, very susceptible to attack because there is a rage against masculinity. There is a rage against men being who all they can be. And that's why our boys are being attacked. That is why our boys are being told about gender fluidity and all of that, so that they are no longer trained to be the best men they can be. And even if they are, then they are becoming they are pushed to the side. You understand? And they see that. Remember when boys, and I'm going back to boys. Remember when boys are 12, 13, 14 years old. Let me just say this. It's very interesting. When a girl becomes around that age of puberty, there are definitive markers
Yeah.
that lets that girl know that, well, I'm now a woman, right? There is a definitive marker. She begins to see her menstrual cycle, these things, and then she must be confronted with a particular reality. Men, on the other hand, boys, they don't have that. So boys,
As
boys,
drastic.
yeah, as drastic. So boys' reaction to manhood is based on, or their interpretation of their manhood is based on what people tell them, or the gang, or the group drive. Some cultures have been able to solve it by going through what they call for young boys that rite of passage. So that when you come through that rite of passage, you are now a man, right? The society looks at you as a man, and it helps you now in terms of worrying about those type of things. As Michael said earlier, the power of parenting, the statistics are there to show that boys and girls who grow up in homes that had two parents have a much
They have
better advantage in terms of being successful socially. Right, not only from an academic perspective, but socially, there's a stronger social conscience and awareness. Somebody mentioned cadets. We need, I think, Ronald Fields mentioned cadets. We need to go back to that. I remember when we had cadets, we had BHS cadets at one time. That was at that time the most powerful cadet force in Trinidad and Tobago. But what happened is that cadets are 12-year-olds.
Yeah.
Cadets are 13-year-olds. Boys who searching for themselves. So what they did, they had girl guys, they had rangers, all of those things were girls. And they still decided that what they're going to do, they weren't going to include boys into girl guides. They weren't going to include boys into girl rangers, but they included girls into cadets.
I don't even think that they have one. They have a boys group now that's natively boys, because they went into
No,
Boy
there is
Scouts too.
absolutely exactly. So they even went into girls. So they have. So when Colonel Baden, I think what's his name, created, when he's realized even back in those days that there was an issue that they had to deal with boys, he created the Boy Scouts, and then girls complained about it, and he created the girl guides,
Guides, yeah.
right? And then all of a sudden, when they still wanted to be scouts, they created the Girl Scouts. And then when they still didn't think, they said, okay, let girls go into Boy
They're going
Scouts.
to Boy Scouts, and it can't be vice versa. Boys don't want to go in there.
But I
Boys
don't,
didn't never want
I
to
don't
go.
know if I could ask quickly, though.
Sorry, I didn't hear.
If I could
I
ask
didn't hear you.
quickly, I don't know if I could ask quickly. I don't know if any of one of you men, seeing that we involved in this, ever just stop, apart from all the things we advocate for, and just wonder, what did men do? What I know, I didn't do anything. I was born into this, or in our. I inherited this. What did we do? And the thing is, many of us who are men today were the boys also who suffered next to our mothers, and now we're grown up now to face a level of what I believe is retribution for manhood. Against manhood.
We almost have to
It's
be
something that I
apologetic for
think.
being a man.
But does it? We here on this show, honestly, if I am to talk freely, tiptoeing around a very serious male and human issue, because we always have to consider what we say, and if it will match somebody, go on, even though we know what we saying is the truth and fact and data to support it. And I don't know if that is if women have to be so talk so gingerly when they are advocating for their issues, when they're highlighting them, and that alone is indicative that something is wrong.
Right. And you brought up a very, and I said this platform is not enough time for us to be able to discuss everything, because there's so many pertinent topics that we need to examine deeply, right? So I do apologize if you feel like I'm glossing over some important topics, but Michael.
No. I just said we personally know how to speak. Yeah.
Mr. Stewart, from an administrative standpoint, what do you think that the male NG... We can't hear you, Mr. Stewart, if you're saying anything.
Before you go on to that, are you hearing me? I want to follow up on the question that Randall asked. What have we done as men? I think the answer is, what have we not done? It is because of the inaction many times in men why we have the situation of the frustration that Randall Fields is having, because I figure he's not getting the kind of support from men, because we have become so silenced, because there are a number of men who are pandering also to women so that we don't appear to rub them the wrong way. I was in a conference and I heard a man make a statement that it brought chills down my spine when he said, anything that a man can do, a woman can do better. So technically what he's saying as a man is that a woman is better than a man in every aspect of her life. And that told me, and I figure he said so because we were outnumbered. I think myself, him, and I think one other guy were the only males there. Everybody else was female. So he's pandering now to the women who cheered him on when he made a statement that everything a man can do, a woman can do better. So therefore, we are even now sabotaging ourselves. We are sabotaging ourselves also when I watch fights taking place, particularly on the social media, etc., and a man is beating a woman. Men jump in and part that. When a woman is beating a man, the men stand around and do not part it while a woman is beating a man. It is our own inaction that is causing us to be in the same situation where we do not speak out. But not only are we now muzzled, women are also muzzled. Because I have gone to many conferences and we are talking about issues of gender and so on. And I've heard women speak out very forcefully in support of what women do and against men. And a number of times that I would say to somebody after, I didn't know you hold those opinions, and they would tell me, Mr. Stewart, women are very vicious, that if we even side with the men, women come down hard on us. And she said, I don't believe it, but I have to say it, in support of the women. That's what we have. And then now that when you take that into the silence of the men, then it is all fall down.
Right. And yes, you touch on something there. The women are also keeping down the women, because that feminist movement is a very powerful movement, right? And they move in such strategic ways. And we talk about, we don't know why it is that we can't get support for this, for that, for those initiatives as men. But we kind of know why. Because it's because of the feminist movement. There's an extreme feminist movement that does not want to see any resources to development go in that direction. You understand? And so, not only are we fighting against ourselves, as you said, but that movement it's so destructive to society today, right? Even that the women who want to side with us, or who accept our traditional roles, or accept our roles that we're supposed to play, even they are being silenced. I remember I listened to Piers Morgan recently, right? Listened to Piers Morgan. They had a panel on with two female. One was a feminist. One was just a regular lady, and then there was a young gentleman there as well. And the feminist is saying, because the regular lady, she was saying that she's afraid for her sons coming up, because to navigate the dating landscape right now is so difficult, because the boys don't know how to approach women anymore, right? Because they have the fear of them be approaching incorrectly. They're being repercussion, allegations of rape and inappropriateness and all of that. You know, the feminist came and says she is glad that is the case, and she's happy when men feel fear to go and approach women. And it's like, how is that even constructive to today's society? How is that even constructive?
I have a suggestion. Unhappy women. Mm-hmm. That's what it is. The feminist movement is a group of totally unhappy women. Now the thing is, and as a result of that, misery loves company. Mm-hmm. And that is basically what's happening there. So the thing is that you figure that you have pushed yourself into a corner where you are no longer viable because you have never understood what men want. You yourself have come to recognize in your own time that you're no longer viable, and as a result of that, I'm going to make it difficult for other people to be viable, right? I'm going to listen. You know the level of evil you would have had to be operating in, and I use the word evil because I can't find another word right now, right? Maybe impunity, right? That you would have had to find yourself in to have seen the statistics, for example, that came out of the University of the West Indies, who already at fault for not even doing enough research, right? But they did this bit of research, and up to this day, there is not a paper that could be presented to rectify that situation. So you saw something like that, and somebody actually said, well, okay. Somebody
And that is the
actually
thing.
just said, okay.
The blatant ignorance is what I have an issue with. You're talking about, 90% approximately are displaced persons are men. And we don't have a male shelter. We don't have shelters across Trinidad and Tobago. The TTPS calling me, National Family Services calling me if I have a home where we could send them to, or some private facility. And you walk down to the square, you will see how many homeless people there. Yet there's shelters for women and children and none for men. So it's as if you see the issues, even the ones that are most glaring, even without statistic, and yet no solution or no desire to even do research or show concern enough to do meaningful research to find a solution for the problem. So all I could think is that you want the problem to continue. Because if we are now going to go into the homes seeking the wives and children or women and children, and we're going to bypass the men, clearly we're not concerned with the issues pertaining to men. And my other issue with that research is this: what about single father-led homes? What about a man whose wife died and he is now the only parent? What about a man who's got custody? Just like how they left those children out from receiving public assistance because their father was male, those children also will not be a part of this statistic gathering campaign. You know why? Because their father is male. How that could be fair? They won't have issues as well. And that, the same... Hello, you all hear me?
Yeah, we're hearing you.
So the same inequity will continue to perpetuate, going over and over and over again. And it's becoming frustrating. As I said, I will continue, and I think it's time that we men need to stand up, because it is evident that if we do this research and we have the data and we have the statistic and stand together, something will change. And we're not doing this for men. We're doing this for humanity, because women make boys.
Right.
This is not for men. This is a human issue. How many women have sons?
Cody, what are you saying?
I think if we, if you talk to some women, they would say, we are like this because, women have been under so much pressure for so many years, and so it's almost as if they are kicking back now. The reality is, I want the women out there to know, we are not fighting you. We actually would like to work with you.
Yes.
Right? But women feel as if because a man is doing something a particular way, and with this whole thing of women equality, because if you want to talk this equality thing, we could do it,
Oh Lord.
because as much as they want the equality, they want it conveniently.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right? We're not fighting you.
Yeah.
We actually love you, right?
Well said.
And that is all that we want, right? So that's my simple contribution.
Yes, it's just for us. We just want to do our roles.
Yeah.
Do the roles that we were taught to do, or we were trained to do, or we were supposed to do, and let us do it comfortably. You understand? Don't. Just for as simple as there are a lot of people who would say a man is supposed to provide. We're talking about the equality thing, but when you're saying that a man is supposed to provide, and then bring up gender pay gap in the same sentence, how is that incentivizing men being providers?
And you see, let me tell you, you see again, boy,
Bring it.
Guys,
Say it.
the statistics are amazing.
The statistics different to
Listen
what
to
it's
me.
saying.
There is something called a univariable analysis, which is what dunces do, right? Anybody that says that, okay, anytime across the board you see that, well, women get 9% less in pay on average than men doing the same job, is really playing the fool with figures that are with the statistics, right? What they do is that because the thing is that that there are men who get paid less than other men for doing the same job. There are men who get paid less than women for doing the same job. However, in the general, right, there are several issues, variables that come in. For instance, who are more likely to stay out very late and work all night? Men. Why? Because women may be more conscientious, women are more sensible. They may want to go home because they think they have a family, right? Men would want to work later. They have to be paid for that, right? Men also will take bigger risks, right? If I say, listen, I want 2 men to run down to Trinidad, 2 people to run down to Trinidad, right? They end up having to go down to Trinidad with my truck or something like that. They will be paid a little bit more for that. The ladies who may say, well, they have their children to think about, may not get paid because that is not the risk they prepared to take, right? But when you look at it all along and then you say, well, okay, well, when you look at the pay thing, Dr. Kern getting paid more than Sister Shala, right? And that is the kind of one-mindedness that happens in terms of how people look at things, and then men are now have to be put back on the back burner and explain and apologize, right? Women's basketball, anybody, even women, can't tell you who are the top female basketball players, right? But yet they want the same pay as the male basketballers, right? How is that even possible? Right?
Just to slide something in there as well that some of us never think about as well. Have you ever in your life seen a jeep load of women only going to the Bitam area?
No.
I sure you saw a jeep load of men alone going. So the job spec that we say we do the same thing and deserve the same pay, particularly in places like the police service, there are some men that have to, as I say, take the greater risk because they will never send a jeep load of women into a hotspot area.
Right.
So then, should a man then, a male police officer then say, here, what's going on? Let the women go. We striking today. If we have the same job spec, let them go in the Bitam and live in the office, live in the station. It is because of our physical stature, which we didn't ask ourselves for, that it is smarter and wiser to send us in certain places and safer for everybody. If they go on these buses, speak to a police officer and hear what they have to say.
Right, fellas, we had to close out. We had to close out. We had to close out. The hour gone. I think we passed the hour. But before we go, we're gonna go have some closing comments from everybody. Mr. Stewart, where do you think men go from here? You could give us some administrative standpoint. How did you notice us?
But I think that we need men who are willing to be heard, to stand up for what they think is right and what they know is right. At the same time, I want to say, we spoke about feminism, that I support the original tenets of feminism, which was the intention to give women what they have not been getting and what they were entitled to. However, the morphed feminism that seemed to be men haters and anything men that we try to get rid of, I don't support that, right? But the whole aspect of trying to get women integrated into everything, I'm okay with that. Let me also say, in my final, we have an old conversation that we try using in this modern situation, using the old conversation about women not getting access to positions and so on. Could you tell me any position the highest position in the land, from president coming down, that a woman does not hold or has never held in this country. And yet we still carry that same old thing, that a woman is excluded from a number of positions. In fact, in many cases, they are outnumbered. They are outnumbered in the schools, in the universities, in the boardrooms. They are outnumbered in almost every area. And they really praise themselves for it. And they promote it. There was some group of, I think, assistant commissioners, and they showed how all of them were women in some group or the other. Yes, and that is good. How come we still making the same complaint? So I want us to be able to say, let us have our voices, and let us not be ashamed of making our voices known.
Mr. Fields, where do we go from here? How do they hear us?
I mean, I concur with what Michael said. It's time for us to stand up, because as I continue to say, to me, I am not standing for a man's issue only. I'm standing for a human issue. And if for years we purported human rights, then we cannot now forget males, particularly when we have young boys coming up, particularly when we have young boys being so negatively impacted and getting involved into so much and negativity. We now more than ever need to show a level of interest into the issues pertaining to males. We've listed a plethora of them, and now it's time for men to ask for the relevant statistic to be gathered so that we can have targeted approaches. So once our life is better, everybody else's life around us is better. Just like once a woman and a child's life is better, it's better for the man. It's better for the entire family if everybody's issues is properly researched, if the right concern is placed on each member of the family unit. That's the only way we're going to fix the family unit, if we show concern for each member of it. And that is my 2 cents. And I just want to speak finally to men. You all need to stand up for these issues, and to women, because there are many, in my belief, I could be wrong, I believe there are more women who are in support of the things that we are seeing. It is a few powerful women that is making the wheels turn negatively against men. And I believe if these women stand together with us, the women that I am referring to, who I know support and love men and their contribution to society, together I think we'll make the change that we need to see.
Right. Dr. Kern, any closing comments? Where do we go?
I totally agree with Michael and Rondell. What I want to add is, let us, and I'm speaking from a spiritual perspective, there are some persons who may not like it, but for me, I think this is one of the root causes, and we need to bring Christ back into the home. Christ being back into the homes, into the school, it then presents an example. And it doesn't matter what disadvantage you may be facing in your home, whether it be not having a positive role figure around, not even having a father around, or growing up in a community filled with a lot of negative influences. Once you have Christ, the man, the example, then you have the perfect example to aspire to.
All right.
Yeah.
Wow. Powerful, very powerful. Yeah. Ted.
Yes, I'm just going to close by saying I am glad that I have 2 daughters.
I have one, eh? I have one too.
And the reason is that I'm one of those fathers that have been very, very into their studies, into their schoolwork and stuff, and I thank God that they're doing very well. But one of the things that struck me is a lot of times when they actually doing the English, you know, like the lit, the English arts and that kind of thing, and they have to compose sentences and compose subject verb agreements and stuff, and you see the examples they use, right? Kirby is disruptive in class, but Anna is a good student, and always, even within the education examples, they use the boys as disruptive, the boys as bad, right? The girls are always, Anna is a straight A student, right? And they use those as examples, right? The boys are always dirty or whatever. And I remember once I challenged a teacher, I said, well, say something good about the boys too now, you know, in one of her examples. And she said, yeah, no problem. And she did it. And she said, Tommy was the best performing boy in the class. So that means that Tommy could have still come to last. You understand? So the point that I'm making is that we really have to speak. I think if we have to solve our crime situation, if we have to solve our men's issue situation, because men really feed off of examples that you said before, Dr. Kern, but they also feed off of their own self-worth that they get from achieving things. Help them to achieve at school. Help them to achieve at school. I would love for us to do some serious lobbies.
Let me just chuck in 2 cents. That's 2 minutes.
Yeah,
Right? 2 cents.
2 cents.
You know,
2 minutes.
2 cents. 2 cents. Right. You know, another thing that we need to look at quickly is the education system and how boys and girls learn. The education system is not designed for how males learn. Right. And even at the university level, you have different matriculation or entry requirements, but those are still not sensitive to how men learn.
Right.
Exactly.
If you were to change the parameters to how men learn, see what the stats would be like.
Right.
Exactly. Very good.
And we have the experts here, right? We have the experts here. We don't need to go overseas. We have them right here. The answers are right here. We are stating them. We have the statistics. We have the facts. But we need persons the persons who are in charge to listen to us, give us an ear, implement sound policy to get these problems solved. We have the answers, guys. We have the answers. And to all the women out there, your problems with men will never be solved by sidelining men. We have to be a part of the solution as well. All right? So, with that being said, we want to thank you guys. We want to thank the listening public for joining us tonight. I want to thank the panelists for joining us tonight as well. It was great having you on, and we need to also continue this conversation. We know we're going to talk on the outside, but thank you guys for coming. Thank you guys for joining us. It's always been a pleasure to discuss with you on these issues. Guys, we're going to see you next week. Next week, we have another action-packed program for you. We're going to be discussing pertinent issues with affecting Tobago space, all right? And there's nothing else we need to say, but again, take men's issues seriously. From Tobago Update Studios, we want to wish you a good night.